It's hard not to notice the American chain restaurants when you travel overseas. McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Wendy's, the Hard Rock Cafe, there are almost as many of them in European cities as there are here in the United States. Most of them are packed with American tourists. People travel for lots of different reasons, and I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but I admit to being baffled by this. Why would you spend all that money and time to travel to a foreign country only to eat exactly the same food you can get at home? Yeah, there are Starbucks all over Barcelona, and they sell Starbucks mugs with the Spanish flag on them, but right down the street from every Starbucks, there are always locally owned cafes, the kind of places that roast their own beans and sell fresh chocolate croissants in the morning. The French and Spanish custom of having high-quality chocolate for breakfast is terribly civilized. It's one of my favorite things about Europe. The gift of stepping outside of our own culture is getting to experience the way other people eat and drink and live for a few days. These encounters always teach us about ourselves, and we come back home with a deeper appreciation for our own culture and clearer insight about other people. The Apostle Paul knew about this tension between the familiar and the different. It is recounted in the Acts of the Apostles. The book of Acts is the sequel to the Gospel of Luke. Luke ends his gospel with Jesus' resurrection. Acts picks up with Jesus' ascension, then tells the story of the early church, especially the ministry of Peter and Paul. If you've never read the Acts of the Apostles, you really should sometime. It is an adventure story, complete with miraculous healings, bitter arguments, jailbreaks, plural, a shipwreck, and running through it all, the work of the Holy Spirit. The Spirit shows Peter, Paul, other apostles, the whole church what to do and where to go. She helps people understand each other, even though they speak different languages. She falls on people at their baptism, making clear that they are genuine followers of Jesus. She guides the church when it has big decisions to make, like, do you have to be Jewish to be Christian? The Spirit's answer is no. The good news of Jesus is for everyone, whether they are Jewish or not. The Gospel of Luke is a book about Jesus. The Acts of the Apostles is a book about the Holy Spirit. Paul starts off as a devout Jewish man named Saul, an opponent of Christianity. To Saul, this whole Jesus thing is too different. The claim that Jesus is the Messiah challenges what Saul thinks he knows about God. So Saul goes after those who are different. He informs on Christians to the authorities. He's present the first time a follower of Jesus is put to death, and Saul approves. But Jesus appears to Saul while he's traveling to Damascus, asking, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Saul is struck blind. He's taken to the home of some Christians in Damascus, and they care for him until he recovers his sight. When Saul is well again, he is baptized. He changes his name to Paul, and instead of persecuting those who are different, Paul begins to seek them out. He travels throughout the Mediterranean world to proclaim the good news of Jesus. His entire life becomes meeting people he doesn't know and forming relationships with them. Imagine for a moment what this is like in the first century. There's no guidebook to any of these places, no Rick Steves videos. Paul has certainly heard about Athens and Corinth and the other cities he visited, but he doesn't really know what he's going to find when he gets to these places. The food might be weird. The customs are going to be different. Who knows what the weather will be like? The sense of strangeness must have been relentless. I can totally understand why Paul might have wanted some first century Starbucks, just to taste something that was exactly the same as it was back home. But Paul doesn't do that. He holds himself open to all the newness he's encountering. The Holy Spirit often speaks through dreams and visions in the Acts of the Apostles, and some combination of these two tells Paul to go to Macedonia. A vision during the night sounds like a dream to me. Paul and his companions leave Troas in modern-day Turkey and sail north across the Aegean Sea. Then they either travel up the river or overland to Philippi. They stay in the city for several days, getting to know the place and the people. Then, on the Sabbath day, they head to the gate by the river, where it seems there is a place of Jewish prayer. And Paul speaks to the women he meets there. One of them is called Lydia. She's a worshiper of God, meaning she attends Jewish services, she is drawn to the Jewish God, but she is not converted to Judaism. Lydia is from Thyatira in modern-day Turkey, and she's a dealer in purple cloth. Purple dye is rare and expensive in the first century, and Lydia is doing well enough to have a large home and household servants in Philippi. She listens attentively to Paul's teaching about Jesus, and God opens her heart to the good news of the gospel. Lydia asks to be baptized, and after she and her entire household have become Christian, she invites Paul and his companions to stay with her. They've done something marvelous for Lydia by introducing her to Jesus. Now she wants to thank them with kindness and hospitality. And daunting as it may be to stay in the home of someone from a completely different culture whom you've just met, what if they commit some faux pas and accidentally offend Lydia and turn her off of Christianity? Paul and his companions accept. The Holy Spirit has guided them to Philippi, to Lydia. It is God's will that these people from very different faith backgrounds, different parts of the world, different cultures be in relationship with each other. This is a microcosm of the work of the Holy Spirit in the Acts of the Apostles. The Spirit is pushing the church out from its origins in Galilee and Jerusalem into the entire known world. Christianity spreads as followers of Jesus take the risk of relationship with people different from them. If Peter, Paul, and the others had focused their ministry on people just like them, Christianity would have stayed pretty small. But because they're paying attention to the Spirit, they go out into the world to meet people who are different and become friends with them and share the good news of Jesus with them. Those new Christians did the same, and the ones after them, and the ones after them, and the ones after them, until eventually the Christian faith came all the way to us in Worthington, Ohio. I've been thinking about the Holy Spirit's call to relationship in the week since a white supremacist drove to a supermarket in a black neighborhood of Buffalo and shot 13 people, killing 10 of them. The perpetrator's ideology says that people who are different from him, especially black people and Jewish people, are threats that must be eliminated. I hope you don't need me to tell you that this racist ideology is the antithesis of Christianity. Our faith proclaims that all people, whatever their race, religion, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, and culture, all people are precious, valuable children of God, made in God's image and deeply loved. Mass shootings have become so common in this country, and our elected leaders so unwilling to take even very popular measures like universal background checks, that we can feel powerless against them. But we are not powerless. The Holy Spirit shows us how to act against violent racist ideology by being in relationship with people of different races and religions and cultures. Just as Paul met people who were different from him and became friends with them, we carry on the work of the gospel when we form relationships with people who are different from us. And we don't have to go far to do that. Here at St. John's, there are people who are native-born Americans and people who immigrated to the United States, people who grew up on farms and lifelong city dwellers, Southerners and Midwesterners and Yankees, Republicans and Democrats and independents, people who are straight and people who are gay, people from a variety of races and faith backgrounds and cultures. The Holy Spirit's invitation to us today is to build those relationships, not just with people we're already friends with at church, but with people we don't know well. We can do that over coffee after worship. We might start with a simple question like, what's bringing you joy right now? We human beings like familiar people, places, tastes. But the Holy Spirit leads us into relationship with people who are different from us, so that we may see the face of Jesus Christ in each other and know ourselves more deeply. You can go to Starbucks in Barcelona if you want, but you know what Starbucks doesn't serve? Paella. This amazing Spanish dish of rice cooked until it's a little crusty on the bottom, with saffron, onion, tomato, bell pepper, peas, mussels, clams, and shrimp. It's one of the best things I have ever eaten. But it's only by stepping away from the familiar and engaging with the different that you get to eat it. There's a whole world of paella out there, and the Holy Spirit wants us to taste it all.